Millionaire spent $12 million to save his twin daughters until the nanny uncovered the truth. The 68th floor of Columbus Circle Tower in the heart of Manhattan didn't give Ethan Blackwood the sense of power a biotech billionaire CEO deserved. It was merely a glass cage displaying his loneliness. The polished Carrara granite floors reflected the sweeping view of Central Park, the golden streaks of a city that never sleeps, flickering like hollow promises. But behind the triple-layered bulletproof glass of the penthouse, there was only a sterile silence that suffocated the soul. Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, gripping a glass of Pappy Van Winkle. His empire, Blackwood Biotech, valued at $8.5 billion and built on gene technology and investment capital, could buy anything. Senators, private estates in the Hamptons, top specialists from Johns Hopkins and Mayo Clinic. But it couldn't buy breath for his two daughters suffering from a rare genetic disease. $12 million spent in 18 months, countless doctors applauding his admirable dedication as a father. Yet Lily, his 7-year-old, remained silent since her mother's death, still clutching a music box that played only one note, still looking at him as if he were a stranger, haunting his own home. Then Sarah Mitchell appeared. No framed Columbia School of Nursing degree on expensive display, no fluency in 3 languages, no scent of Chanel No. 5. She was simply a gaunt 27-year-old woman carrying the scent of $2 Dove soap, a worn canvas suitcase from Brooklyn, and a broken oak music box, the last gift from her daughter before she died, that produced only a single note of C before falling silent. "That's the strongest note," Sarah whispered to Lily on that first night, her voice hoarse with grief. "It doesn't pretend to be a perfect symphony. It just exists, honest and pure. Sometimes one truthful note from the heart saves more lives than an entire orchestra bought with money and lies." But Ethan didn't yet know. Sarah was not some nameless stranger. She harbored a secret 5 times more painful than all the money he'd spent. A secret connected to Catherine, the late wife he still blamed himself for failing to save, to the death of Dr. James Mitchell, Sarah's husband, consumed by unforgivable guilt, to Amy Mitchell, Sarah's sister, who died from drugs in a dark room, and to Marcus Blackwood himself, his half-brother, the man who had turned the desperate pain of families like his into a $4.8 million cash printing machine. In this lavish world of Manhattan, where everything could be purchased with a check, the only question burning in the darkness remained. Would Ethan Blackwood choose the applause celebrating fake success, or the trembling hand of a broken woman helping him rise from the ashes? Marcus Blackwood entered the penthouse at 9 o'clock the next morning, his $30,000 Tom Ford suit rustling softly against the granite floor. Behind him was Sarah Mitchell, her small figure nearly disappearing into the darkness of the long hallway. Marcus didn't even turn to look, merely waving his hand toward the living room, as if directing where a piece of furniture should be placed. "Ethan, this is candidate number 9, Marcus said, his tone flat as reading a financial report. "Sarah Mitchell, 27 years old, former nurse, no experience working with affluent families." Ethan sat behind a walnut desk, morning light from Central Park casting sharp, cold lines across his face. He looked up at Sarah, his ice-blue eyes scanning her like a security checkpoint. No smile, no greeting. Only the assessment of a CEO accustomed to making million-dollar decisions in 3 seconds. "Sit down," Ethan commanded, not invited. Sarah sat in the leather chair opposite, back straight, hands folded on her lap. She didn't lower her head, didn't hesitate. This made Marcus frown. "What credentials do you have?" Ethan opened the thin file before him, his tone like interviewing for a low-level intern position. "Nursing degree from Brooklyn College. Not Columbia, not Yale," Sarah answered, her voice so calm it made Marcus flinch slightly. She didn't try to hide her background. "Experience caring for children with genetic disorders?" 4 years at New York Presbyterian Children's Hospital, Intensive Care Unit. "References?" Sarah paused, then said, 2 are dead. 1 quit from burnout." Marcus chuckled softly, a mocking sound. "You're honest to the point of naivety, Ms. Mitchell." But Ethan didn't laugh. He stared straight into Sarah's eyes, searching for signs of deception, of a rehearsed script. He found nothing, only a deep darkness like a bottomless well. "I pay $15,000 a month. You'll stay here 24/7. No days off unless I permit. My daughters need—" Ethan stopped, jaw clenched. "They need perfection." Sarah looked up at him, and for the first time her voice softened, but not from fear. "You don't need perfection, Mr. Blackwood. You need someone there at 3 in the morning when they can't breathe. You need someone who isn't afraid of nosebleeds, of crying, and of failure." Marcus stood abruptly. "You're too direct. This isn't the place to—" "To what?" Sarah turned to Marcus, her gray eyes suddenly sharp. "To tell the truth, I wasn't hired to lie to him." "Have you cared for similar cases before?" Ethan asked, ignoring Marcus. Something in her voice just now, not anger, but understanding, made him unable to look away. Sarah took a deep breath. "I lost a child to this disease, Mr. Blackwood, mitochondrial disease. Mia, 4 years old. She died in my arms because I couldn't afford the final experimental treatment." Her voice trembled, but she didn't turn away. "So I know exactly what awaits Lily and Emma, and I know your money can't buy the one thing they need most." "Which is?" Ethan whispered, his throat suddenly dry. "Someone who believes they're not a burden." The room fell silent. Marcus opened his mouth to object, but Ethan raised his hand to signal silence. He looked into Sarah's eyes, and for the first time in 18 months he saw what money could never buy: real pain. Not rehearsed sympathy, not professional compassion, but the scar of a mother who had lost her child. "You're hired," Ethan said, his voice hoarse. "Start tonight." Marcus turned to him, eyes wide. "Ethan, she hasn't passed psychological screening, hasn't—" "I'm done, Marcus." Ethan stood, ending the interview. But as Sarah left the room, he couldn't stop wondering, did she really come here for the $15,000 salary, or for another reason? A reason he wasn't brave enough to ask about yet. Sarah didn't knock on Lily's door at 11 o'clock that night. She simply turned the handle gently and stepped inside, carrying the scent of lavender from a small cloth pouch hidden in her sweater pocket. The room was shrouded in darkness, only an amber nightlight casting faint shadows on the sterile white walls. Lily wasn't asleep. The little girl lay curled up beside a pile of expensive, untouched stuffed animals, clutching an old wooden music box to her chest. Sarah didn't approach the bed. She sat down on the cold wooden floor, about 3 steps from Lily's bed, leaning against the wall. In the dim light, her gaunt face looked like a faded charcoal drawing. "Can't sleep?" Sarah asked, her voice hoarse not from fatigue, but from having cried too much on similar nights. Lily didn't answer. She only held the music box tighter, her tiny fingers trembling. "That's a beautiful box," Sarah said, not demanding a response. "It was your mother's, wasn't it?" Lily nodded slightly, a nod almost unconscious. The little girl's eyes glistened, not with fresh tears, but with tears that had dried from many nights before. "Can you open it for me?" Sarah asked. "I used to have one just like it. My daughter's." Lily looked at Sarah for the first time, her blue eyes exactly like Ethan's, widening in surprise. She hesitated, then slowly opened the music box lid. The mechanism inside whirred, and then only one sound rang out in the silence. Ting. A single note of C, pure but lonely, then silence. No melody, no continuation, just the heart-wrenching cry of something once whole, but now broken. "It's broken," Lily whispered, her voice choking. "Mommy said it played a beautiful song, but now it's just one sound, like Mommy is gone." Those were the first words Lily had spoken in 6 months. Sarah felt her heart being squeezed. She crawled closer, but still didn't get on the bed, just sat close to the bed's edge, eye level with Lily. "No, sweetheart," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "It's not broken. That's the most honest note I've ever heard. It doesn't pretend to be a perfect symphony. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It just exists, alone, but very strong." Lily looked at the music box, then back at Sarah. "But aren't you sad when it can't play the song anymore?" "Sad," Sarah admitted, her eyes also wet. "But I learned that sometimes one real note means more than an entire false song. And you know what? Your mother is still in that note. Every time you open it, she's saying, 'My child, I'm still here.'" Lily hugged the music box to her chest, and this time she cried, not silent crying anymore, but small sobs of a child finally allowed to grieve. In the office downstairs, Ethan sat in darkness, staring at the surveillance screen. He saw Sarah, this stranger, sitting on the floor, letting Lily cry on her shoulder. He saw how she held the little girl, not like an employee, but like a mother holding her last child. And for the first time in 18 months, Ethan Blackwood, the man who could buy anything in the world, cried. Not from despair, but from hope. The door to the adjacent room opened. Emma, 5 years old, stepped out with sleepy eyes. She saw her sister crying in Sarah's arms. "Who are you?" Emma asked. Sarah opened her arms wide. "I'm the person who will be here for both of you." Emma ran over, nestling into the empty arm. And in that cold room, 3 broken souls held each other tight, while Sarah hummed a nameless melody. Not a complete song, just a simple tune, repeating over and over, like the very note in the music box. One note, but enough to begin healing. In 7 days, the 68th floor penthouse began to breathe. Sarah didn't ask permission. She opened windows that the maintenance team had sealed for 2 years, letting wind from Central Park blow in. The medical antiseptic smell gradually gave way to lavender from small cloth sachets she hung throughout Lily and Emma's bedrooms. Not expensive essential oils from Provence, just $3 dried flower bundles from Union Square Farmers Market. But they carried memories of real fields, real sunshine, real life beyond this glass tower. On the 3rd dinner, Sarah appeared in the kitchen with a pot of homemade chicken soup. Not the Michelin chef's consommé served on Wedgwood porcelain, but Jewish-style chicken soup from her grandmother's recipe, cooked in an old cast-iron pot she brought from Brooklyn. The smell of dill, celery, and onions rose, filling the sterile kitchen with something money couldn't buy: the memory of home. "We don't eat this," Marcus said coldly when he visited that evening, looking down at the soup bowl as if it were something from the slums. But Lily, for the first time in 6 months, picked up her spoon and took a sip. Then another. Then, "Good," the little girl whispered. 2 words. The second sentence of the week. Emma, sitting beside her, grinned widely and also drank the soup. And in that moment, Marcus saw what he feared most: his influence dissolving before a woman with only chicken soup and a genuine smile. Every evening, Sarah read stories to the 2 girls. Not early education books from the Montessori program Marcus had selected, but an old copy of Where the Wild Things Are, the story of a boy who goes to where the wild monsters live, then returns home to where someone loves him most. Lily lay on Sarah's shoulder, listening to every word. Emma drew pictures with crayons. The picture Emma drew on the 5th night made Ethan stop in his tracks when he passed by. It was a large hand, light brown, with long fingers. Below it, Emma had written in scrawled letters, "Miss Sarah's hand, warm." Ethan stood staring at that picture in silence. A hand, not money, not medicine, just a hand. The phone rang at 10 o'clock on Friday night. Marcus, his voice ice-cold through the speaker. "Ethan, we need to talk about that nanny." "Sarah is doing well," Ethan replied, eyes still on Emma's drawing. Lily has talked more in the past week than in the previous 6 months. That's exactly the problem. Marcus paused, his voice becoming tense. She's too simple, too intimate. That's dangerous, Ethan. She doesn't follow medical protocols. She feeds the girls food from farmers markets. She opens windows when they need a sterile environment. They need to live, Marcus, not live in a laboratory. Do you know anything about her past? Marcus asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. I investigated. Her husband, Dr. James Mitchell, committed suicide 3 years ago. Her daughter died from mitochondrial disease. Her sister, Amy Mitchell, died from a drug overdose 2 years ago. You're allowing a psychologically unstable woman, haunted by death, access to your daughters. Ethan felt a chill spreading through his chest. But then he remembered how Sarah held Lily that first night, how she wasn't afraid of tears, how she carried her own daughter's music box, not to forget, but to remember. She understands pain, Marcus, Ethan said, his voice firm. That's why she can heal it. Or, Marcus said, word by word, she's here for another reason you haven't seen yet. Be careful, Ethan. People don't survive 3 deaths without carrying darkness. The call ended, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and in the darkness of his office, Ethan didn't know whether to trust Sarah's warmth or Marcus's warning. On the 9th day, Sarah asked to clean Catherine's old study, the room Ethan had locked tight since his wife's death. Mrs. Chen, the gray-haired Chinese housekeeper, handed Sarah the key with an inscrutable look, as if knowing something she wouldn't say. The room was covered in dust. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the curtain gaps, creating dim streaks of light on the cherry wood desk. Sarah opened the window, letting wind blow away the thick layer of dust like a veil hiding the past. She started with the drawers, old papers, bills, family photos. Then she found it, a navy blue leather-bound diary hidden behind a stack of art books. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened the last page. Catherine's familiar handwriting she'd seen on countless notes during their college years, written hastily, chaotically. March 12th, Marcus is deceiving Ethan. I have proof. The medical contracts for Lily and Emma, all fake. Neurocure Labs doesn't exist. Millions of dollars pouring into a black hole. I must tell the truth. But Marcus threatened me. He said if I open my mouth, I'll lose everything. I'm afraid, not for myself, but for the children. Sarah hugged the diary to her chest, tears streaming down. March 12th. Exactly 2 days before Catherine died in that car accident, she continued searching. In a yellow envelope tucked between 2 books, she found an old photo. Catherine and Sarah, 20 years old, standing in front of Columbia Dormitory, smiling brightly under autumn sunlight. 2 young women who didn't know that 10 years later, one would die for a secret, the other would return to find justice. And then, the letter? A letter never sent, the recipient's address handwritten in blue ink. Sarah Mitchell, 447 Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn, NY. Sarah opened the letter, her hands ice cold. Dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, it means the worst has happened. Marcus Blackwood has threatened me. He knows I discovered his conspiracy, defrauding Ethan of millions of dollars through fake experimental treatments. I was preparing to report him, but he said accidents can happen at any time. Sarah, if anything happens to me, please protect the children. Lily and Emma need a mother. Not a wealthy mother, but a real one. You're the only person I trust. Give them what money can't buy. Give them love. Catherine. Sarah collapsed to the floor, clutching the letter to her chest. She remembered that night, the night Catherine died. The phone call at 2 a.m, Catherine's voice trembling. Sarah, I'm scared. Marcus knows. He knows I have evidence. If I die, don't let... Then the screech of car brakes, the sound of metal crashing. Silence. You found it. A gentle voice rang out from the doorway. Sarah spun around, startled. Mrs. Chen stood there, her wrinkled face harboring the sorrow of 20 years serving this family. "I know who you are, Miss Mitchell," Mrs. Chen said, stepping into the room. "I recognized you from the first day. The face in the photo, Mrs. Catherine always kept in her wallet. Her best friend from college. The person, she said, would save the children if anything happened." Sarah swallowed hard. You know about Marcus?" "I know everything," Mrs. Chen whispered. "I've been waiting for you for 18 months, waiting for someone brave enough to expose the truth." On mid-autumn night, Sarah led Lily and Emma to the rooftop, a place untouched since Catherine's death. Dust covered the concrete floor thickly, but from here they could see the full moon hanging suspended among Manhattan's skyscrapers, like an ancient silver coin amid a steel forest. Sarah didn't hire an event company. She only brought $5 paper lanterns bought from Chinatown, hanging them sparkling on old rope. Candlelight inside the lanterns flickered, creating warm streaks of light on the two girls' faces. On an old tablecloth, Sarah placed mooncakes bought from a small bakery on Mott Street. Not luxury cakes from the Peninsula Hotel, just simple cakes with red bean paste and salted egg yolk filling. "What's this, Miss Sarah?" Emma asked, eyes brightening as she watched the lanterns swaying in the wind. "This is the Moon Festival," Sarah explained, sitting cross-legged beside the two girls. "Where I grew up, people gather to watch the moon, eat cakes, and tell stories about hope." Lily held a small lantern, candlelight reflecting on her face. And then, a miracle happened. Lily laughed, not the polite smile that doctors had tried to stimulate through therapy, but the pure, carefree laughter of a 7-year-old seeing something magical, for the first time in 18 months. Sarah felt her heart simultaneously breaking and mending. She turned away, quickly wiping tears. "Miss Sarah," Emma said, voice soft, "why are you sad when you look at me?" Sarah trembled, then knelt to eye level with Emma. "Because you remind me of another little girl, named Mia, my daughter." "Where's your daughter?" Lily asked, still holding the lantern. "Mia went to heaven," Sarah whispered. 4 years old. She had the same disease as Lily and Emma. I tried my best, but it wasn't enough. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough miracles. Emma climbed onto Sarah's lap, hugging her. "But now you have us. We're not going anywhere." Behind them, Ethan stood at the rooftop doorway. He'd come looking when he found the penthouse empty. Now he stood still, watching the scene before him. A broken woman holding his 2 daughters under moonlight among cheap lanterns filled with love. When Lily and Emma had fallen asleep on Sarah's shoulders, Ethan stepped forward. He silently helped Sarah carry the 2 girls to bed, then both returned to the rooftop to clean up. "Why do you stay?" Ethan asked in the silence, voice hoarse. "Why do you do all this for someone else's children?" Sarah picked up an extinguished lantern, holding it to her chest. "Because if I can save Lily and Emma, maybe Mia will forgive me. Forgive me for not being able to save her." "That wasn't your fault," Ethan said, stepping closer. For the first time, he saw Sarah not as help, but as a woman, fragile, hurting, and frightening strong. He reached out, taking Sarah's hand. Her hand was ice cold, but didn't pull away. In that moment, amid moonlight and dying lanterns, something passed between them. Not love, not yet, but recognition. They were both left behind, trying to find ways to save what remained. Then Sarah pulled her hand back, stepping away. "You're my employer, Mr. Blackwood. This is the boundary." But both knew that boundary had begun to blur. And despite what Sarah said, despite her efforts to maintain distance, they still felt it. The electric wave running down their spines, breathing quickening, each other's presence becoming too clear in the darkness. Ethan nodded, respecting the boundary she drew. But as she turned to leave, he knew one thing for certain. Sarah Mitchell didn't come just to heal his daughters. She came to heal him, and that made him both afraid and full of hope. 2 a.m, the penthouse sank into absolute silence. Sarah couldn't sleep after mid-autumn night, not because of the moment Ethan held her hand, but because of Mrs. Chen's whispered words before bed. The financial records are in his office safe. The password is Lily's birthday. Sarah walked barefoot down the hallway, heart pounding. Ethan's office door was ajar. He'd forgotten to lock it after working late. Light from the computer screen in sleep mode cast a pale blue shadow in the room. Sarah turned on the desk lamp, its dim yellow light illuminating the wall, safe behind an abstract painting. She entered the password, 070520012, Lily's birthday. The safe opened with a soft metallic click. Inside were thick file folders arranged chronologically. Sarah pulled out the newest file, labeled Lily and Emma, Clinical Trial Phase 3. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through each page. Contract with NeuroCure Labs. Ethan's signature at the bottom of each page. Total amount, $12 million over 18 months. But when Sarah turned to the financial appendix, the blood in her body seemed to freeze. Electronic transfers. From Blackwood Biotech account to NeuroCure Labs. Then immediately, $4.8 million transferred to a Cayman Islands account. Account holder, M. Blackwood, Marcus. Sarah continued flipping. NeuroCure Labs' operating license, forged. No company by this name registered with the FDA. No clinical trials. Only invoices, emails, and empty promises. Then she saw the name that made the world spin around her. Dr. James Mitchell, listed as independent medical consultant for NeuroCure Labs. Her husband, who died 3 years ago. Sarah pulled out the old phone in her sweater pocket, opening the photo of James's suicide letter. The letter she'd read and reread thousands of times. Dearest Sarah, I can't live with this guilt. Marcus Blackwood forced me to sign fake medical reports. I thought I was helping desperate families, but I was selling false hope. When I discovered the truth and wanted to withdraw, Marcus threatened to destroy my career, accuse me of fraud. Amy knows too much. I'm afraid she'll be next. Protect your sister. I'm sorry. I love you. Amy, Sarah's sister, died 6 months after James from a drug overdose in a dark apartment. Police concluded suicide, but now Sarah understood. Amy didn't commit suicide. She knew too much about Marcus. Sarah realized with a bone-chilling shudder. Marcus Blackwood had killed 4 people she loved. Mia, indirectly, because money for Mia's treatment ran out when James lost his job. James pushed to suicide. Amy, silenced forever. Catherine, for daring to seek the truth. Hands trembling, Sarah began photographing each page of records with her phone. She emailed the lawyer Mrs. Chen recommended, attaching all evidence. Then she photocopied the most important documents on the office printer. The printer had just stopped when the hallway light turned on. A tall figure appeared in the doorway. Marcus Blackwood stood there in a dark suit, face emotionless. But his eyes, cold as ice, stared straight at Sarah. "What are you doing in my brother's office, Ms. Mitchell?" Marcus asked, tone gentle, but containing a deadly threat. Sarah stood straight, hiding the photocopied papers behind her back. But Marcus had seen them, and from the cold smile blooming on his lips, Sarah knew. The game had just begun. Marcus entered the office, closing the door behind him with a gentle push full of menace. His eyes swept over the photocopied papers Sarah was trying to hide, then stopped at her face. "You're James Mitchell's wife, aren't you?" Marcus asked, his tone no longer polite. "I recognize you now. The face from the funeral, the wife standing crying beside the casket." Sarah dropped her hands, letting the papers fall to the floor. She raised her head high, looking straight into Marcus's eyes. "Yes, I'm James Mitchell's wife, And I'm also Amy Mitchell's sister, the girl who died from drugs in a dark apartment after working for you. And I'm Catherine Blackwood's best friend, the woman who died in a mysterious car accident 2 days after discovering your conspiracy." Marcus's face paled, then flushed red with rage. In a lightning-fast movement, he lunged forward, grabbing Sarah's collar, pushing her against the wall. "You dare accuse me? You dare come to this house with schemes? Get your hands off her!" The shout rang out like thunder. Ethan appeared at the door, hair disheveled, eyes red. He'd just returned early from a morning meeting in London out of concern for his daughters. He rushed in, pulling Marcus away from Sarah, pushing him aside. "Are you crazy, Marcus?" Ethan roared. Marcus straightened his vest, regaining composure at a frightening speed. "No, little brother. The crazy one here is her." He pointed at Sarah. "She came here for revenge. Her husband committed suicide from mental illness. She blames me, blames you, blames the whole world. Now she wants to destroy our family." Ethan turned to Sarah, his blue eyes full of confusion. "Sarah, is this true?" Sarah trembled, tears streaming down. "Yes and no." She took a deep breath. "James was my husband. He worked as medical consultant for a company Marcus operated. They defrauded desperate families, selling false hope for millions of dollars. When James discovered this and wanted to withdraw, Marcus threatened to destroy his career. James couldn't bear the pressure. He committed suicide." "Lies!" Marcus roared. "James Mitchell was a fraud. He killed himself for his own guilt, not because of me." Sarah shook her head violently. "My sister Amy worked as assistant for Marcus. She knew too much about this operation. 6 months after James died, she died too. Police said drug overdose, but Amy never touched drugs in her life." Marcus laughed coldly. "She's delusional, Ethan. She lost her child, lost her husband, lost her sister. Now she's jealous of you, of your wealth. She wants compensation money. She wants—" "I have proof." Sarah pulled out her phone, handing it to Ethan. "Here's Neurocure Lab's contract. The company Lily and Emma are participating in clinical trials. You paid $12 million. $4.8 million went straight to Marcus's Cayman account. This company doesn't exist. There are no trials, only fraud." Ethan took the phone, looking at the screen. His face gradually paled as he scrolled through each photo. Transfers, Cayman account, forged signatures. "Ethan, don't listen to her." Marcus stepped forward. "I have evidence." Another voice rang out from the door. Mrs. Chen entered, holding a small USB drive. "I've been recording for 20 years. Every call, every meeting, every threat." She looked straight at Marcus. "Including the night you discussed fixing Mrs. Catherine's car brakes." Absolute silence engulfed the room. And in that silence, Ethan Blackwood finally saw the truth. He had been betrayed by the very brother he trusted most. Ethan plugged the USB into his desk computer, hand trembling as he clicked the mouse. The screen lit up, displaying hundreds of audio files arranged by date. Mrs. Chen stepped forward, pointing to a file dated February 22nd, 3 years ago. "Listen to this one first," she said. Ethan double-clicked. Static noise, then Marcus's familiar voice rang out from the speakers, cold and calculating. "Dr. Mitchell, you understand clearly, right? If you withdraw now, I'll make sure every hospital in New York knows you signed those falsified reports. Your career will be destroyed. Your family will have nothing. Your wife, your sick daughter, they'll be on the streets. Do you understand?" James Mitchell's labored breathing, then a voice full of despair. I understand." Sarah covered her face, shoulders shaking violently. This was the voice of her lost husband, the man she loved, the man Marcus had pushed to the edge of death. Mrs. Chen pointed to another file, dated March 10th, 2 days before Catherine died. "Marcus, I can't let her live. She knows too much. She has evidence about Neurocure." It was a stranger's voice. "Brakes can fail at any time," Marcus's voice replied, cold as ice. "Especially on Palisades Parkway. Such a tragic accident." Ethan staggered back as if slapped. His knees went weak, nearly collapsing. "No, it can't be." "There's more," Mrs. Chen said, clicking the third file. "September 5th, 2 years ago." "Amy Mitchell is becoming a problem," Marcus's voice. "She's threatening to go to the FBI. We need to handle it." Fentanyl leaves no trace," the other voice. "Just like a regular overdose." Sarah pulled out the navy blue diary from her sweater pocket, Catherine's diary she'd found in the study. Her hands shook so badly she had to use both hands to keep it from falling. She opened to the last page, reading aloud, voice choking. "March 12th. Marcus is deceiving Ethan. I have proof. Marcus threatened me. He said if I open my mouth, I'll lose everything. I'm afraid. But I must tell the truth. Ethan will never believe me. He trusts Marcus more than his own wife. Marcus killed me before I died. And the one who truly killed me is Ethan's silence." Ethan fell to his knees, hands clutching his head. The first sob escaped from deep within him. Not the cry of a CEO, but of a man who just realized he'd killed his wife through blindness. Catherine told me," he whispered through tears. "She said Marcus was deceiving me. But I didn't believe her. I told her not to talk crazy. I said Marcus was family. I killed her by not believing." Marcus backed slowly toward the door, face pale. "Ethan, you must understand. I did this because..." "Because of what?" Ethan shot up, eyes blazing red. "For money? For power? You killed my wife. You killed Sarah's husband. You killed her sister. You deceived me, took my money, and let my daughters die slowly in fake treatments." Marcus turned and ran toward the door. But Ethan was faster. He lunged forward, blocking the way, grabbing Marcus's collar, shoving him against the wall. "Ethan, I'm your brother!" Marcus screamed, voice full of fear for the first time in his life. "We share blood. Family must..." "Family?" Ethan roared, tears streaming down his face. "You're not my family. You're my wife's killer. You're the destroyer of innocent lives. And from this moment on, you are nothing to me." Mrs. Chen pulled an old phone from her apron pocket, pressing a saved number. Her voice was unnaturally calm. "Detective Rodriguez, this is Mrs. Chen. Can you come up to the 68th floor now? I have what I promised you." Marcus turned to her, eyes wide. You've been working with the police?" "2 months ago," Mrs. Chen replied, emotionless. "Since I knew Ms. Mitchell would come." 5 minutes later, the elevator opened. 3 police officers entered, led by Detective Rodriguez, a gray-haired man with a stern face. He'd been working with Mrs. Chen for 2 months, quietly gathering evidence. "Marcus Blackwood," Detective Rodriguez said, pulling out handcuffs. "You're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and suspicion of involvement in 3 homicides. You have the right to remain silent." Marcus struggled as 2 officers approached. "Ethan, we're brothers. Family must protect each other. You can't let them..." Ethan stepped forward, looking straight into Marcus's eyes, his voice ice cold but very clear. "Family doesn't kill innocent people. Family doesn't turn others' suffering into money. You're not my brother. You're just a murderer." The sound of handcuffs clicking onto Marcus's wrists rang out, cold metal. Marcus turned to look at Ethan one last time, fear truly visible in his eyes for the first time. Then police led him away, footsteps fading down the hallway. When the elevator doors closed, Sarah collapsed to the floor. All the strength she'd maintained for 3 years, strength to survive, to come here, to find justice, vanished in a second. She covered her face, sobbing. "Catherine, James, Amy, Mia." She called the names of those lost, each name a wound that would never heal. Ethan knelt beside her. For the first time in 18 months, since Catherine died, he felt free. Free from guilt, free from deception, free to cry. He held Sarah, letting her cry on his shoulder, and he cried too. Small running footsteps sounded. Lily and Emma, awakened by the noise, ran into the office in pajamas, eyes red. They saw Dad and Miss Sarah, the two strongest adults in their lives, holding each other and crying. No questions asked. Lily ran over, kneeling down, hugging them both. Emma followed, small arms embracing tight. "Don't cry, Dad and Miss Sarah," Lily whispered, voice trembling but firm. "We're here." Emma pressed her cheek against Sarah's shoulder. "We love you. We're not going anywhere." Ethan looked up into Sarah's tear-filled eyes. He saw Catherine in them, the best friend his wife had loved. He saw all he'd lost and all he'd just found. "Sarah," he called. Not Ms. Mitchell, not the nanny. Just Sarah, the woman who'd sacrificed everything to save his family. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for coming home." And in each other's arms, amid dawn breaking through Manhattan windows, 4 broken souls began to mend. 3 months later, early winter snow blanketed Central Park. From the 68th floor penthouse window, Ethan looked down at the city, no longer feeling cold. Marcus Blackwood had been sentenced to 25 years in prison for fraud, money laundering, and involvement in 3 homicides. The trial lasted 2 weeks, but evidence from Mrs. Chen and Sarah's testimony had sealed his fate. Lily and Emma were no longer silent, frightened children. They laughed more, ran and played more. Their illness remained. Medical science hadn't found miracles, but their condition improved significantly. Not from expensive medicine, but because they had what money couldn't buy. Real love. Dad by their side, and Sarah, who was no longer the nanny. Christmas night, the tree in the living room sparkled with lights. Sarah sat beside Ethan on the sofa, their hands lightly touching. On her ring finger glittered a simple platinum band. Ethan proposed a week ago, not with a huge diamond, but with a promise. "I'll be with you, forever." Lily sat before the piano, the Steinway that Catherine used to play. She placed her hands on the keys, taking a deep breath. Then she played. Debussy's Clair de Lune, the piece Catherine often played before bed. Lily played each note with absolute concentration, small fingers gliding across black and white keys. The music flowed like moonlight, like water, like memories of a lost mother. When reaching the final note, Lily could have ended the piece perfectly, but she didn't. She paused, then pressed down a simple C note, exactly the note her mother's old music box used to play. Ting, one note, pure, honest, lonely, but strong. Emma clapped. "Why did you play one note at the end?" Lily turned, smiling. "Because Mom Sarah taught me. One honest note is the foundation of all music. Without that foundation, everything is just beautiful but empty noise." Sarah wiped tears. Her other hand rested gently on her belly, where a small life was growing. 4 months, a girl. Ethan and Sarah had chosen the name, Mia Catherine Blackwood, a name honoring the past but facing the future. Ethan kissed Sarah's forehead lightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for teaching me to hear that note, the note I'd been deaf to for so many years." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for giving me a chance to play again, a chance to love, a chance to live." Outside the window, snow fell heavier, blanketing the city white. But inside this once cold penthouse, warmth now overflowed, not from the $100,000 heating system, but from hearts that had found each other again. Because finally, Ethan Blackwood understood a lesson that $8.5 billion couldn't buy. One honest note from the heart saves more lives than an entire false symphony bought with money. And sometimes a trembling hand helping us rise is more precious than 1,000 rounds of applause celebrating hollow success.